Hey guys, welcome to another episode of this One Piece podcast. Today we're discussing the Alabasta arc, which is chapters 155 through 217. And yeah, so just to start with general thoughts, I really like the arc. Got to see, I think my favorite thing about the arc was that it um, really allowed the author to show like a lot of silliness, and you kind of got to see with the other stuff that we mentioned in the last few arcs. But like I think all the Baroque Works agents and just like their general themes was really fun. Especially liked just all the ones you see in this arc. We are already seen a lot of Mr. Two, but I think my favorites definitely are Mr. One was super cool, the Blade guy,
hmm
um, and then the combo between the Mole Lady and Mr. Three, Mr. Four. I think it was Mr. Four.
Mr. Four.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just like the creativity that they showed throughout this arc was really cool.
hmm to go off of that, you mentioned the silliness. I also think it does a great job of balancing like the silliness with the seriousness,
Hmm.
and having like a silly devil fruit or something, like Bone Clay or any of those guys. It doesn't really take away from their strength at all either.
Hmm. Um,
Yeah, that's something that Oda is really good at is like even like the characters that have these like wacky character designs can still be like intimidating. Like I genuinely think that the chapters where we kind of like see the Baroque Works agents like meeting up together and like finding out who their boss is for the first time, even though like they're all of the Baroque Works agents are so like wacky and zany, those chapters are still like really like tense and like you're constantly wanting to know like you're wanting to know what their powers are, you're wanting to know how strong they are. So it's like even though there's like a lot of like silliness in like how it's presented visually and like even like their interactions, you can still definitely feel like the tension and like the intrigue from those chapters, which I think Oda is really good at. He's like balancing the comedy with like the good old fashioned like shonen stuff where we want to like find out about powers and things like that.
yeah, and I think one of the biggest ones that stuck out to me was, well, actually there were two that stuck out to me. One of them was, I think it's like right about halfway through the arc when they're moving from the casino town to Alabarna, the capital, and they're trying to get there fast, and they're like, oh no, we don't have anything, and then we don't know how to get there or something like that, and then some guy's like, oh yeah, this giant crab is native to this desert and it'll help us out or whatever, and so they all get on the giant crab and they're moving at like light speed or whatever, and then they get to a river like, oh no, the crab can't swim, what do we do?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this crab he likes hot women, so put on that desert clothing or whatever, and the crab starts running across the water and ends up
Yeah.
sinking. And then they have like the otters that helped them out earlier, or like that Luffy like befriended earlier. They're like, "We'll save you, comrades." And then they get off the land, and then like this squad of ducks just comes out of nowhere and helps them get across. And like that scene was like I was laughing my ass off at just how silly that scene was. But then also it ends with them like coming up to the capital, and like the frames of them all on the ducks like shrouded uh in the like
So
tried to make
cool.
them look identical to each other, like really well drawn and like really cool, and it was like, oh my god, that's so epic, even though they're all like riding these weird duck creatures. It was super
Yeah,
cool.
exactly. I love how the otters are like basically set up way earlier as
Yeah.
just like a literal joke. Like Usopp is like, "What are these otters?" And then like beat the shit out of Usopp. And then like the next panel, like Luffy's beating the shit out of the otters. And then the next panel, the otters are like training under Luffy as his disciple. Like I love that. Like how I mean I think the timing of those panels, how like all of those things just happen in like just one panel for each of those things was great, but then also the fact that that gag is the setup for later like an actual plot relevant thing is pretty great. And that's
Yeah.
like that's the thing with Oda. I feel like in One Piece, like even things like that, like even just one-off gags like in other stories like are actually just they're actually just foreshadowing and they're setting up like plot points for later on. Like the fact that you never like in One Piece, there's never like a plot like a point where you're just like, oh, like that's done now, because like there's always the chance that Oda is gonna like bring it back later, you know?
Yeah. I
And
like
if it's a joke, that makes it even more funny. You just waited like 2 arcs for the punchline there.
Exactly. Yeah.
one of the
Yeah.
jokes that I
So
also liked that kind of kept recurring was the camel that they were traveling with was also like a horny camel. He was just like,
good.
it's like, oh yeah, I only carry hot women or whatever like that, and like
Oda,
he's just
Oda
like,
loves his pervy jokes.
yeah. I mean, there
Yeah.
was one like really late in the arc where his dad like walks in on the like peeps in on the bathhouse where his daughter is taking a bath, and I was like, what the hell? But the
I mean,
camel.
I'm sure he was mostly interested in Nami. I'm
Oh
sure
yeah,
that
for
there
sure.
was.
But yeah, the camel that just travels with them throughout the entire arc and like ends up being like an important character because they're able to distract the Baroque Works agents by making them think they're all going, and then Vivi is able to like escape towards the army. And like just the fact that this camel, I think he gets a name. I can't remember what it is, but
Eyelashes, I think.
yeah, eyelashes.
Hmm.
And it's just like this very silly character that I don't know, like you said, they might be setting up for something later, but just throughout the story, and it's just like such a small thing, but like it ends up working pretty well.
Yeah, definitely. No, I love the like the scene like we were talking about earlier, the scene where they're like coming into the capital and they kind of like organically get paired off with all of like the Baroque Works agents is like really cool because that's like I feel like that's the kind of thing that happens like so many different like shonen arcs where it's like I'll go ahead, I'll take this guy, like you keep going without me or whatever. But I feel like this was like a really organic way because it was kind of like it was integrated with like their plan, like they need to get Vivi to talk to like the rebels. So like it made sense that they were all trying to like disperse the agents and trying to like make it so that Vivi could be alone without them. So I really like that, and I also like all of the fights that follow are fantastic as well. Like I think this arc definitely has like some of the best fights in One Piece so far.
Yeah, I also noticed how organic it felt that they got paired off. Like I was like, it's something I notice a lot when I'm watching a show or something where it's like, oh, okay, they have to pair them off so they don't all like because one fight with all of them in together would be very very chaotic or whatever, and this
Hmm.
is a
Hmm.
nice way of pairing them off, and the arc does it really organically, like you said, and yeah, the fights that followed, I think. I'd have to say that I think Usopp and Chopper's fight was definitely my favorite, just because it was more of that
Yeah,
comedy.
yeah.
I really liked that fight, and it had the moment that you mentioned last time with they're like, oh yeah, who the hell is firing all those baseballs? Like, oh, behold our gun that ate the inu fruit,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the dachshund variant, and they're just like, what? How can a gun eat a fruit? She's just like, who cares? You're about to die in 2 seconds anyway. Just leave it alone. Nobody cares. It was so,
Yeah,
yeah, it was so
it's a
good.
freak of nature.
Yeah. But
Yeah, I
And
like those fights like with Usopp and like because obviously like the people that he's fighting are way more powerful than him, but he has to kind of like use tactics and like trickery to beat them. I love those kinds of fights, and I think that Usopp has a lot of really really good ones throughout the series. This is definitely one of them.
it definitely highlights the like quick wit, and he's shows off like all these different arsenal he's got. Uh,
you get to see his
yeah,
5-ton
I
hammer.
five
The
ton
5 ton
hammer.
hammer, yeah.
I
Oh
absolutely
yeah.
love the 5-ton hammer because like he takes it out and whacks him, and she's like, "Holy shit, you can carry 5 tons!" And like the entire time, Chopper's like, "Wow, Usopp, that must be so heavy. That's like the heaviest thing I've ever seen." And then he survives, and she's like, "Oh, that's not a 5 tons." It was just a bunch of very silly fight.
Yeah, good stuff.
And then
Yeah, I like that one. I think well, okay. I think the next one that happens is Sanji versus Mister Two, um,
yeah, I thought
which is a
that fight was alright. I think it might have been my least favorite fight out of all of them.
Hmm.
yeah. I probably agree. I maybe like the Nami one a little bit less, but yeah. I mean, my favorite one is definitely. Oh, I mean, do any of you guys have anything particular to say about the Sanji versus Mister Two fight? Because I thought it was kind of
I don't know.
it was
I
fine.
Oh, go ahead, Luke.
I would agree. I would agree it was okay, but Sanji had his badass moment earlier in the arc, so it's forgiven.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, we can go back and talk about that later. Some of like the
Yeah.
subterfuge that happens.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, I mean, then the other one was Nami versus Miss Doublefinger,
Hmm.
where it's like I think it's kind of interesting that like Miss Doublefinger, who is like the she's paired with Mr. One, so she's like one of the most powerful like characters, one of the most powerful Baroque Works agents, and she's fighting Nami, who has like not really ever gotten a real fight before,
Hmm.
and this is like their first time using her new weapon. But I mean, it's kind of like basically the whole fight is just her like figuring out how it works, which is cool because like now we know that this is like how Nami's going to fight in the future and stuff.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
I think
and
what.
yeah, I mean, I like that she's so outmatched. I
Yeah.
also like how Miss Doublefinger a couple times during the fight is like, oh, like poor girl. Like she's like she like empathize. She's like, oh, like I feel bad for you because like you're just trying to figure shit out. Like I thought that was funny.
Yeah. I think what I like about this fight, which puts it over the Sanji fight for me, is that you get the comedy with her trying to figure out the weapon in real time, and it's like Usopp. Usopp gets like a few lines of like flashbacks of him explaining like something about the weapon, and she's just like, and she's like, oh yeah, you gotta flip the manual over from the party games to the actual weapon. It's yeah, I think that aspect of it was really funny for me, and that's probably what puts it over the Sanji fight for me. I don't know, the Sanji fight to me just felt a little boring almost. Like it didn't have anything super special. It was just them dealing blows back and forth, and then he disguises as Nami, and like he has to figure out like I don't know the idea that he can't hit her, can't hit him because it's disguised as her is like it seemed kind of lame to me, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's just Sanji's his code. He can't hit a woman.
Yeah.
But I like how Sanji, like, what I really like about that fight is how, like, Sanji, like, recognized, like, it's not just like he's dumb, like, he thinks that that he's actually Nami. Like, he recognizes that, but he also recognizes that, like, he can't sacrifice this, like, part of his character. So, like, he like figures out, like, oh, I just need to, like, make him touch his face with his left hand, and then he'll, like, change back, and then I can hit him. I
Yeah.
thought that was pretty clever and a pretty fun way to end the fight.
I thought it was cool that each of the fights had them like growing and like learning throughout the fight. And you definitely see that with
Yeah, and
Zoro's fight the most, I'd say, because like,
Hmm.
exactly. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's why Zoro's is like my favorite because I love how I mean it's established from the very beginning of the fight where like Mr. One is like I am like made of steel. Like I am like I have the blade fruit. And so like so Zoro is just like all right, that's great because by the end of this fight when I beat you, I will be able to cut steel.
yeah, that's a
So like the
badass
goal
line.
is set from
Yeah.
the very beginning. And like I mean, and he just fucking does it, Like I love how he has like the flashback about like how the what makes a true swordsman is that he can like decide what to cut. Like that a true swordsman cuts what he wants to cut and doesn't cut what he doesn't want to cut.
Yeah.
And so like I feel like that's kind of just like Zoro or like what that is that's like a swordsman knows when like violence is necessary and like when to destroy something, but he also knows when what's valuable in life and like when to protect something. And like he's protecting his crew by beating Mr. One and protecting like what's valuable to him. And yeah, I really like this fight because of like the strong progression that we get both in like Zoro's character and also in his like fighting techniques.
Yeah.
And
Like
it,
also
and it
that
was
last
something that he
panel,
it was
the
something he
last
was
panel
trying
is
to
so
get accomplished for a while too.
Yeah.
exactly, like he had mentioned it before that he was like
Yeah.
couldn't cut steel, which is cool that it's like foreshadowed. And now it's like he's just one step closer because this is like, and like that was like a goal for the fight, but it's also like one step towards becoming the greatest swordsman. He was never going to be the greatest swordsman if he couldn't cut steel, and now he can do that at least. So I like that a lot.
I thought I think his line being like, by the time I finish this fight, I'll be the guy who can cut steel. I think that was probably my second favorite, like second most badass line in the entire arc. I think that my first was definitely for Luffy's fight when he's like, "I will surpass you." That was a badass moment. And when I was watching I went back and watched the fight for it on the anime. I thought the delivery of that in the Japanese VO was so good. It was like a hype moment, and the music that was playing during that fight was super cool.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
dude, the New World Symphony that's playing as Luffy just like finally is able to like beat Crocodile.
Yeah.
Like he like punches him through the roof of like the mausoleum or whatever.
Yeah.
So sick.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, really cool.
Um,
That's definitely like one of the moments where like the soundtrack really
yeah.
elevates it. So that's definitely one
Yeah.
of the strengths
You
of the
keep
anime.
telling you guys, both of you guys keep telling me about like going back and watching a lot of the times, like when with the with Luffy putting the hat on Nami, it also has like a really cool soundtrack. I guess it's like a motif from the
Mm-hmm.
show.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, definitely going back and watching some of those after reading the manga is pretty fun.
Yeah, for
Although they're like 40 minutes on YouTube or whatever, so
sure.
um, but yeah, back to the Zoro fight. I actually really liked. I think out of all the Baroque Works agents, I think Mr. One was my favorite. He was super cool, and he seemed like pretty mellow compared to some of the other agents. Besides, of course, like the baseball guy, he was like, probably the most mellow out of all of them. But no, Mr. One just like had such a cool power. Like when he turns, he like at one point he like curved his fingers and turned the inside of his curved fingers into blades and like tried to grab Zoro. And just like it just seems so creative. He like turns his arm into a drill at one point. It was
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah, because he's like, I'm not even a swordsman. Like, because I feel like a lot of Zoro's other fights have been against swordsmen, but he doesn't even like say that he's a swordsman. He just like is a blade. Like he's a human blade,
Hmm.
which is like a natural fit for like a Zoro fight. That was really cool.
And he also mentions like every swordsman I've gone up against, I've defeated. So that's also like a
Right.
huge thing for Zoro. Like I will be the swordsman to defeat him, and that also means he's going to be able to cut iron.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I also really like how like that like the intrigue for his power is set up pretty early, like when we first see him in like the Spider Cafe, where like he kind of like gets in a fight with Mr. Two, and he like is pushed back through the wall, and they're like I think oh, I forget what like the mole lady's name is who fights with Mr. Four, but like she comments specifically, she's like, "Ooh, like what's up with like his power? Like it looked like he like there's like a hole in the wall. It's not like how a human would like crash through a wall. Like what happened there?" And we don't really like we kind of like just see
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
like we see like his hand, but we don't really see like what's going on there. I like the intrigue that's kind of
I
like
think it was
it's
Miss
just
Merry
asking questions.
Christmas, right?
Yeah, I think it was Miss Merry Christmas.
I
Yeah.
liked her, just like the way Oda wrote for her, like everything, like really, at least the translation, everything was like all meshed together in one word, basically. Like she was talking
Yeah,
super
yeah.
fast.
In the animation, just talking really, really fast. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is like a contrast for Mr. Four, who says like 3 words the entire arc. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and then I guess talk about Luffy's fight as well. I thought the fight was awesome. I mean, I guess it's three fights throughout the entire arc. First one is just Luffy getting his ass beat,
He gets
which
impaled.
yeah, he does.
yeah,
Yeah, and this is interesting because I feel like every other fight, like Luffy has like barely even been trying. This is like the first fight where like Luffy has actually been like pushed to his absolute limit, and he still gets bodied by Crocodile.
yeah,
Um, and it's like crazy that like the first fight where Luffy is like actually like giving it his all and like not goofing off during the fight comes like over 150 chapters into the manga, which is pretty funny, I guess. But like, yeah, I mean, it definitely like sets up Crocodile as like a extremely intimidating villain if he wasn't already like,
yeah. And we get to
yeah,
see Luffy grow or like and learn throughout his fights as well. For the first fight, he gets his ass whooped because he's made of sand. He can't hit him. Second fight, he's got the
hmm
water on him, but then once the water dries up, he's completely done. And the third fight is so metal because he's just using his blood to like hit him. I thought that was cool
yeah,
as hell.
that's so cool.
Yeah,
He's like, I don't
definitely.
have any water. Like Crocodile's like, where's your water? And he's like, I'm using my blood. That was so sick. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really metal. Um, and then we get to see Crocodile with like Crocodile like he doesn't seem to change much. I think his biggest change was like taking out the poison hook, which I thought was a
Hmm.
little eh, to be honest.
Yeah,
Like
I
I
mean,
just
Crocodile's like powers already are just so intimidating. That I don't yeah, I mean, I don't know if he really like needs any like additional like the,
yeah
the poison hook is like definitely not as intimidating as just the fact that he can like drain you of all your fluids and
He
stuff.
yeah.
was already in his final form.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wasn't hiding
That's what I love
anything.
about Crocodile is like, he's been planning this for so long. Like he found Alabasta, which is like the perfect place for his like devil fruit, like for like his sand powers, because like this is the place where like he'll be able to have like the most impact. Because he can like he'll just like flick his finger and then like he'll just start a little like dust devil, and then he's like, yeah, like in a day, this will be like a huge sandstorm that's gonna like destroy like Yuba, and the fact that like this is like where he decides to make his home base, um, and like also like that he's like trained his devil fruit so much that like when other like Logia users when they or other like uh they can't like when they get hit by like surprise or something, they like aren't they like still take damage. But like
Hmm.
Crocodile, like it's just like a reflex for him. Like whenever like something touches him, he just immediately turns into sand. So like you wouldn't even be able to get like a surprise attack
Yeah.
on Crocodile because he's just that prepared. Like he's honed his fruit that well. Like I just like love like that makes him so intimidating, that he's just like that dedicated to like to his plans, and like he's just like, he's a man with a plan, and I like that.
Just a great villain overall.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
definitely think he's my
I
favorite villain so far.
oh totally. Yeah.
And I don't know. I think the entire just setup with him being the leader of this mysterious organization, and like for the first or for like the last few arcs, we didn't know who he was, and then it revealed that he's um, Mr. Was it Mr. Zero he went by, or just something like
Hmm.
that?
Hmm.
And then they
Hmm.
revealed he's Crocodile, and he's actually a Shichibukai, and that's like pretty intimidating, and like that sets the stage so much before he even like appears. And then
Exactly. Yeah.
he's got his second in command, Miss All Sunday, and then it looks like she like nukes the fleet that Igarim is on. So
Hmm.
if like that's his second in command, like then the first in command is probably super strong.
Yeah.
And just like all the setup it just plays so well into this arc and like setting up Crocodile to be this intimidating figure.
Yeah. And I love how like we like know that Crocodile is the big bad going into the arc, but like the first chapters that we get in Alabasta are Crocodile like being a hero to the people and like defeating some like pirates that are trying to like rob people and stuff. So like I love the aspect of Crocodile that he's like a manipulator, that he's kind of like playing both sides of the country against each other. And like you can see that by like the fact that he's like a folk hero. Like everyone is like, oh, like Sir Crocodile, he's so great. I'm so glad that like he's here. He's like protecting us, and people have more faith in him than they do in the king. So yeah, I really like that like manipulator side of Crocodile because that's like plays real like it's a really good payoff to the like kind of like secret agent type like Baroque works thing that's been like building for so long. It's like it makes sense, and
Yeah,
I appreciate that payoff.
I definitely agree. The political aspect of the arc was pretty interesting. It wasn't anything super complicated, but it made sense, and that's what I definitely appreciated. Being able to play this
Yeah.
two sides and like they introduced the the dance powder that makes the rain appear in one area but basically takes it around away from the other area as like this point of conflict. And then they also introduce early in the chapter they've got um, the guy in the town in Cuba, is that the town's name? Or
Yuba, I
Yuba,
think.
sorry. And he's been just trying to save this town that was once prosperous. And then we learn that Koza is like a really old friend of Vivi, and he's the leader of the rebels, which is a pretty big thing for Vivi, and like that sets up future them like that being a good point for them to stop the rebellion because they have that connection between the two of them. And
Hmm.
I don't know, maybe that was something I would have liked to see a bit more. Is just like we didn't get to see a whole lot of Koza, and maybe a bit more of that I would have liked, but it didn't hurt anything really. He wasn't super important, but we didn't really get to see if like how strong he was because he was the leader of the rebels. So I was kind of expecting maybe him get his own like mini fight or something interesting about
Hmm.
him, but that didn't end up happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he was characterized pretty well in the flashbacks. I thought the VV flashbacks were like really good, both in like setting kind of like this is what Alabasta is like. It also characterizes Vivi more, Koza more, and her dad, which are like those are both characters that are new to the arc. But yeah, I mean, I think that like I don't know if it's really implied that like Koza is like strong in like the same way that like Luffy is strong, because I think that he's just like he's just able to convince people to like join him kind of like just through his like charisma and through the fact that like he embodies this feeling that like everyone else has of like being betrayed by the king. Um, So I mean, yeah, I think there's kind of like a distinction in One Piece of between like kind of like politically powerful people and like people who are just like strong, like they have like devil fruits or they're just like your freaks of
Hmm.
nature like Zoro.
Hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, I
One.
mean, I like how like that's kind of like what Vivi like she's like, all right, this is like what I know the situation to be. So like I'm going to try to like talk to Koza because like that's what I can do. And like that kind of like leads into like the conflict that she has with Luffy at at Yuba, where she's kind of like only thinking she's like, this is like our plan, like we should just like talk to Koza, and Luffy like wants to beat up Crocodile. And I think the kind of like conflict there is that like she's not thinking of like she wants to save everyone, right? Like she wants to like prevent any bloodshed from happening in the first place. Whereas like Luffy is kind of like understands that like that might not be possible. And like she's basically risking her life to save everyone else's. But Luffy is basically saying like, you know, you should be willing to risk our lives too because like we're your friends and we want to help you. Which I really like that kind of like conflict, how like Vivi is trying to save everyone and Luffy's more of like a realist and he recognizes that like there's stuff that he can do to stop uh, rather than just talking, you know?
Right. Vivi understands that too, I feel. One of the most annoying parts of the anime when I was watching was the episode where she's screaming on top of the clock tower or whatever it was. And for like half an episode, she's just screaming on the top of her lungs, "Please stop fighting!"
That did that a lot in the like it was like a long drawn out thing in the
Oh,
anime.
it
Or?
was it was at least 10 minutes of her
Oh
screaming.
no. That sounds
Yeah,
horrible.
that definitely reads much better in manga form for sure.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I really liked Vivi as a character. I thought she was a great like way to introduce Alabasta and like kind of like a more standard way of looking at the Grand Line. Like there are these kingdoms. Like before this, we had seen Drum, and Drum was kind of weird in its own way, and then we had the Dinosaur Island, and like it just kind of seemed wacky. And then we get to see like a more standard civilization here, and I think Vivi was a great way of introducing that, and like it's a very likable character. Um, she kind of she kind of is like Nami, where she plays the straight man among the group, but I feel like she's a bit more chill, like a bit more willing to be goofier than Nami.
Hmm.
And of course, you get all the people that are surrounding her, all the royal guards and her father and Karu, I think was the duck's name, and just
Hmm.
all this is introduced and pulled off so well. Um, and Vivi is like the way that pretty much it all goes through her. I feel like, and I thought Oda pulled that off really well.
Yeah, and she definitely like fits in with the crew very well.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
really
it's good that
liked.
she's introduced so much earlier than the actual arc starts. You know, like we've already been with Vivi for 50 plus chapters by the time we get to Alabasta. So we're invested because we like Vivi and she's invested. So I think it's like a really good way of just like easing us into the arc, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, what was I gonna say? I can't remember. It was something off what Luke was saying, but
Sorry.
yeah. I really liked the decision. I kind of saw it coming. Like I didn't really think Vivi was gonna be like a pirate. She didn't seem like the pirate type. Like she was traveling with them, and obviously their group isn't like standard pirates because they're not going around robbing people or anything. But I feel like I think they even mentioned this in the chapters, like maybe the last two chapters. I think Zoro
Hmm.
makes a comment like, "Oh, her background's completely different from all the rest of us. Like, you can't really expect her to join just because we ask her to, because she is a
Hmm.
Hmm.
princess, and like, if her father, anything ever happened to father, she would have to rule the kingdom. And for them setting up like the fact that she loves her kingdom so much throughout this entire thing, if by the end of it she just left it, like, that would be pretty lame,
Yeah, I
and
agree.
it would just,
And plus we get that like insanely emotional moment at the end where like Vivi is like saying goodbye to them and they're already on the ship and she's like, "Will you like still call me your crewmate?" And then they all just the panel where they're all just holding up their arms with the X's on them.
yeah,
Oh my God.
yeah, a really
So
good,
good.
very good, very good.
Because it's
What's
like
the
such a
word they
good
use
payoff.
instead of crewmate? The that you were talking about the other.
Nakama.
Yeah, Nakama.
Nakama, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, that entire like last two chapters I think where they're sending off and they're fighting the Marines kind of at the same time, very well done. And they're also like setting up future conflict because they're setting up they bring back Django. We didn't talk about last time, but the Django side story that was
Right.
going
Yeah.
on and like that comes back because Django and the Marine captain are back and then they're both working under this new Marine captain and that they come back and they're introduced and these guys are like, oh, not these guys again, Jesus, I
Yeah.
remember these guys, and they're kind of goofy and not really doing what they're not really doing their hardest or whatever, but you kind of expect
Yeah.
that because they're both kind of silly characters,
Yeah.
and it's all
Exactly.
kind of the setting for they're trying to get out of Alabasta as fast as possible, but they also have to like have a proper goodbye with Vivi, which is really cool.
Yeah.
While we're talking about Marines, I gotta bring in my guy Smoker
Oh yeah.
because he's involved a lot in this arc, and I'm a big fan of the relationship with Luffy. It's kind of like the Tom and Jerry cat and mouse. They
Yeah.
every time they meet, it's just Neo. They're
Yeah.
running away.
Smoker was pretty cool this chapter. I mean, he definitely comes to more of an understanding with Luffy. Like, he knows he ends up learning like, okay, well, this guy's wanted a lot, but he's going around doing the right thing, and like that's why he literally like basically takes himself out of the situation. Once they get out of the cage and he like understands Luffy and his crew's point of view, what they're trying to do here, he's like, all right, I'm gonna take a seat back, and he lets his second in command. He's like, you can make your choice. Would you rather go after Luffy or would you rather go after these people? Like, do what your morals tell you to. And like, he just takes a step back for the rest of the arc until we see him at the very end with he's talking with this new Marine captain and he kind of has another seat back and he's kind of teasing her and he's just like, I'm chilling. Don't worry about me. Like, I don't really think chasing after Luffy's a good idea because he's going around doing good. So. I thought that his entire thing was pretty cool. Also, we get to meet Ace during that first scene when we see Smoker, and they're all in the
Oh
bar
yeah.
together. That was cool.
Yeah. What did you think of Ace, Will?
I thought Ace was cool as hell. I mean, I first saw him, I was like, oh shit, guy looks like Luffy. I
Yeah.
was worried that like, oh, maybe it was like just lazy drawing or something, but I was just like, oh nope, he's supposed to look like Luffy.
Yeah. He's like Luffy, but he has like a crazy. Like he's got so much going on with his design. Like he's got like the hat, and he has like the smiley and the frowny face, and he's got the tattoos and stuff.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I mean, I really like Ace as well.
and he
He's
seems
definitely
super strong. Just the little bit that we saw of him. And he mentions that they mentioned Blackbeard like a couple arcs earlier, and he mentions, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going around hunting Blackbeard, and I'm working under one of the Shichibukai, Whitebeard, and that was pretty cool. Just
Yep.
setting up more for the future.
I don't think yeah I don't know I don't think he says that he's one of the
Oh,
Shichibukai,
maybe not. He said it was really
but
strong
he's
though.
yeah he is yeah that I mean we that's all we've heard that Whitebeard is really strong. Um, yeah, because I mean I think that like if he was because I know that like during that encounter with Smoker like he's like oh it's Ace, but like Smoker kind of like cares more about Luffy just because like that's where like he's got like his own personal grudge against Luffy because he was like he escaped him earlier, but like that's kind of like another like a moment that Smoker also follows his own sense of justice. Like he just does what he wants to do because Ace is probably the bigger target. Like we don't know what Ace's bounty is, but
Yeah,
he probably has a pretty big one considering he's the second division commander of Whitebeard, who's been talked up to be like a pretty important pirate.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean like
And we also get introduced to like anti fruit powers during Smoker's little thing because like they get locked up in the jail cell and they have the sea stone, I think it's called, uh,
Hmm.
mm-hmm.
the bars. So like that's like a new thing that I'll definitely be watching out for in the later chapters just because like that's a pretty powerful thing. Just turn your fruit powers off.
Yeah,
Right.
and Smoker has some on the tip of his Jite.
Mhm.
But not the whole thing, or else he wouldn't be able to use his smoke powers while he was
Also,
using
I
it.
don't know.
So it's just
I'm
on the
sure
tip.
it was in previous chapters, but I didn't realize the smoker was smoking two cigars at once.
Oh yeah.
That was pretty
Oh
badass.
That's
yeah.
just like that. Some classic One Piece stuff. Everyone is just like the like most exaggerated version of their character, and so Smoker got to be smoking two cigars.
Yeah, fits his character pretty well too.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
I feel like this arc is also the first time where we're kind of introduced to the fact where Like the world government, the Marines, maybe they're not all that good. You know,
Yeah.
you have Crocodile, who is Shichibukai, who's like, they work under the world government, and he's able to, manipulate this country. Um, it just kind of brings up the morality versus like orders and what's considered right.
Yeah. We definitely get a lot with the
Yeah.
Marines and morality, just because like I think the first time we got that was like Axan Morgan, which is super early in Romance Dawn, and
Hmm.
like he's like not a good Marine, and the Marines that follow him weren't that good. But until now, like they've kind of just been like a. It seems like they've almost been a background because I mean you've had Smoker introduced, and he seems like a pretty good guy, and he seems like he's very understanding. But then his like second in command, this arc, she has like a very like he puts her in charge basically, and she has like a conflict of like her faith is kind of shaken in the Marines,
Hmm.
and that was really interesting to me. Just like how much she's like, oh, I need to go at the very end of the arc. She's basically just like, man, this has been so much, and like I am exhausted. Like I need to go take a nap and like rethink some things.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like how, because Smoker gives to Shigi like the he basically gives her the reins. He says like you do what you want, kind of like inviting her to like have the same kind of like following her own sense of justice, just as Smoker has been doing. And I think he even says like you should make sure you follow your own sense of justice. But then like she kind of like has like a moment where um like Crocodile basically says to her like the only people that like can enforce their own like sense of justice or whatever are the people that are strong enough to do so. Like he's basically just saying like might makes right.
Hmm.
And so I mean that's kind of like a calling like for her to get stronger, I guess. But also it's just sort of like showing that like the Marines aren't really doing much to like make the world a better place if like someone like Crocodile is literally completely enforced, like completely what's the word? I don't know, like officially sponsored by the government.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I definitely liked him being like, okay, well, you want to like make this right, get stronger, just go get
exactly.
stronger, like. So I'm expecting to see some development from her in later chapters, and I'm pretty excited for that because so far she's been a good character, I think. I definitely liked her introduction with Zoro, and that entire scene with them in the sword shop was pretty great.
Hmm.
So getting to see more of her in the future, and hopefully their growth with her and Smoker, and them chasing around, like you said, Tom and Jerry type of situation. Very interesting and something I'm looking forward to. Let's
Yeah,
see, what
definitely.
else?
Well, we didn't really talk. We kind of skipped over like some of the earlier stuff where like, um, well, we talked a little bit about Yuba, about like how Luffy meets. Well, we didn't really talk about how Luffy meets the old man, and how he kind of like before he's like being super frivolous with like the water. He's like trying to drink it all because he's thirsty. But I think after he meets the old man, who ends up being Koza's father, he's kind of like he recognizes the value of that, and he like recognizes how hard this man is working, and he like that's kind of like a microcosm of Alabasta. Just like they're all like working hard because they have hope, but it's been completely taken away from them by Crocodile. And that's kind of like what sets Luffy off, and it's like, all right, we need to kick this guy Crocodile's ass.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, I like that like that little moment. It's a good like this arc is really large in scope, but I like that it still has time for like those like more intimate human moments.
yeah. And I think it kind of sets up for like later stuff when they set up those human moments early on, like just a conversation between Luffy and Vivi, and then later on during a fight when they have like a flashback to that conversation, or he has a flashback to him talking to the Koza's dad and Yuba, and just like that, like I feel like that just emboldens whatever emotion is going through the reader when they're reading the fights, because those fights are definitely emotional high points, um, and just setting up those more intimate moments early on. It's just a great way to embolden those fight scenes.
Yeah, I
Like I
agree.
think the one
Like,
that they use the most is he uses like two or three times where they call back to Luffy just being like, "Oh, all I got to do is kick Crocodile's ass," And like
Hmm.
that like the biggest point was like after he kicks Crocodile out into the air and like everyone sees, oh shit, that's Crocodile. He's getting his ass beat right now. And then
Yeah.
Vivi looks up, and then it has the flashback, and she's like, Luffy being like, all I gotta do is kick Crocodile's ass, and like she starts like, oh, that must be Luffy in there beating his ass. It's
Yeah,
really
because
great.
no one else could do it.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. um, other smaller moments, I don't know.
Well, we never got back to a big moment, which was Sanji's prison break.
Is
Oh yeah, that's right. After they make it from the village to Rain Base, which is where like casino or where the Crocodile's casino are, everyone gets captured except for Sanji.
oh
And
yeah
then
yeah yeah
Sanji
yeah.
has a yeah.
He calls him up on the Den Den Mushi. It's Mr. Prince.
Mr. Prince, yeah.
And then he like mimics the call that he did on Whiskey Peak or wherever he did the other phone call.
Yeah. I think it was
On
on
Little
Little
Garden.
Garden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, that definitely a badass moment for Sanji.
Yeah, and it was cool because it was like set up because no one like they didn't know that Sanji was a member of the crew because like when Bon Clay meets them at the very beginning, um, Sanji was just like making food or something, so he didn't get their face. So like everyone in Baroque Works like knows what everyone in the Straw Hat crew looks like, except for Sanji. So it's like they think that they have everyone, but then Sanji is like the unexpected element.
Well, also he beats up the unluckies who are the ones like they have. I think there's a moment in Little Garden where like, how do you know like what these people look like? And like the two unluckies like draw a picture extremely fast of one of
Yeah,
the people,
yeah,
and the fact that Sanji beats them up and like they aren't able to draw that picture is pretty funny for like why they don't know anything about Sanji.
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, his prison break where he breaks them out of Crocodile's casino, I think it was,
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
sick.
I love the banana dials in
Yeah,
in
what a
the
great
in the
name for a
casino.
fucking creature. They're just
I love how they
crocodiles
were
with
like,
bananas on them.
yeah, yeah, exactly. No, no, those bananas have crocodiles growth on them.
That was a great conversation.
Yeah,
I was kind of disappointed, but also like it made sense that they didn't kill off the candle guy, the wax guy, because like
Hmm.
oh
it's.
yeah,
I think it was pretty interesting how they were able to use his power to make a key to get out, but also like
yeah. I like they just like gave up on having the key, like on actually finding the key. They're just like, no, this is better. This will
yeah,
work.
but also like he probably should have died there. Man just got eaten by banana dials.
Yeah, it's fine though. This is One
Yeah,
Piece.
Sanji beat the shit out of those banana dials though. He was kicking
Yeah,
them all over.
yeah, they didn't stand a chance.
I like Sanji's theme of like when he's fighting, he's always like talking about it's almost like he's talking like he's a chef, of course, and he's like whenever he hits somewhere, he like aims for it and he like shouts it out or whatever, and it's always like it feels like it's like one of the cuts of meat or something like that. Like
Yeah, yeah.
whatever region he's attacking, like he'll attack like something and just be like the loin or like the
Hmm.
shoulder or something like that, and it's all
Hmm.
in French. It's super cool.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I like their like his creative attack names for
Yeah.
sure. I
Um.
mean, we haven't really talked about like uh the Alabasta, like the guards, like Chaka or Pell.
Oh
Um,
yeah. That was another person I think should have died was Pell. Like he had like
That's
his
the
oh
will of
yeah, I mean,
P.
yeah,
That's the
I
will
think
of
that's the.
P, my guy.
This is definitely, in my opinion, the like most heinous like no one ever dies in One Piece moment. Like Pell should have died,
yeah, he had
like
like a Tony
because
Stark moment where he just flies up into the air with this bomb. And like
yeah,
it's supposed to be
exactly.
this bomb that has 5 kilometer radius and Pell doesn't die from it? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really don't like that, especially like this bothers me more than like the I don't remember. I think it was Dory who like they did the die fake
Yeah,
out
yeah, yeah.
in Little Garden. This bothers me so much more because it was explicitly like a moment of sacrifice. You know, like
Yes.
he did this like with the knowledge that he was going to like sacrifice his life, or at least that's what like made the moment like have impact. But I guess like that isn't the same anymore because now it's like, oh well, he must have just known that he would have been able to like outspeed the bomb or something. Like
Hmm.
I don't know. It definitely just robs it of its impact because that was like a
Yes.
really good death scene for Pell. Even though he wasn't like super fleshed out as a character, like that was a great moment for him. Like that he was willing to sacrifice himself because he was like, you know what, I trust that Vivi will be a good ruler for the kingdom and that like what I'm doing will be able to like help everyone and like stop the violence and stuff. But like, yeah, it's like okay, well he wasn't even a sacrifice. It's kind of
Yeah.
disappointing.
And they even give him like scenes right before it or as it's happening. I can't
Yeah.
remember where he's like it's like a flashback when Vivi's really little and he's like flying around with her and like it's pretty
I know, yeah.
emotional and just completely shattering the stakes for that entire scene is kind of I think that was probably my biggest problem with the chapter was that scene in particular. Um,
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah,
I think
that's definitely.
the other royal guards are pretty cool. I can't remember his name, but the Anubis looking guy, the jackal guy,
Yeah,
he was
Shaka.
like kind of a distraction almost. Like he was the one that was like fighting Crocodile to like, and when Crocodile, I think he throws Vivi off the roof before Luffy picks her up when he's riding Pell, and he's like basically trying to distract Crocodile so everyone can get away, and he's got his own moment of
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice type of thing, but it's not as obviously not as emphasized. And then you've got like those four guys, which I thought looked really cool, and they all like take the fruit that gives it's basically steroids, except after the steroids you die.
Yeah,
And I thought those guys looked
and then
super cool.
yeah, although like literally like Crocodile didn't even fight them. He just like turned into sand, went away, and they just died. Just
Yeah.
like yeah, I don't know. I don't really. I mean, yeah, that was pretty cool though. Like it definitely like did set up Crocodile as like wow, Crocodile, he's a dick.
Well, he's also smart because like, why waste your energy fighting these people if they're gonna die in 2 seconds anyway?
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
thought they were pretty cool looking, but also sad that they died so fast.
Yeah, it was like 3 pages.
Oh, also they set up uh, Crocodile's like they like when they talk about Crocodile's motivations, he's looking for the stone that has this ancient writing, which Miss All Sunday,
Yes.
aka Nico Robin, is. That's why she's with him because she can read the stuff, and uh, and so he was looking for something called Pluton, I think it was called,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
and so this Pluton looks basically seems like it's plutonium. It's like this super explosive, can blow up an island material, and he's looking for that, and that's why his main motivation is taking over this kingdom because he thinks the kingdom has information, which I think is definitely going to be important later. But also it gave us a lot of information on Nico Robin, like some more backstory, and the arc ends with her asking to join the crew, which is pretty cool.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Yeah, big, you know, the whole time it was like, oh, like maybe VP will join, but it's actually Nico Robin who is like a big unexpected thing
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, no one in the crew is expecting it, that's for sure. Um,
and I mean,
so it's
I actually legit just stopped there. I have not read any more, so I'm not sure how the crew is going to react because like that's the last panel is like Nico Robin being like, "Can I join your crew?"
Yeah.
And or
yeah.
like that's why she's here or whatever. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think the chapter is called "The Stowaway," which is calling to that. But yeah, I'm excited to see what she does because so far she seems really powerful, and the only moment when she didn't seem powerful was when she was fighting Crocodile,
Mm-hmm.
and
Crocodiles, yeah, very powerful. So
Crocodile is
it's
extremely
understandable.
powerful. So, but like
I
that
mean, what
moment when
we've seen of
she,
her fruit, yeah,
yeah,
like you can go on.
that moment when she's just like everyone's charging at the door and just like all of a sudden like a million hands come out of the door and just kill or I don't know if they kill everyone, but they incapacitate everyone that's attacking is super cool. Just like I don't know, her fruit
Yeah.
in general is really cool. It's a very
Something you would
flexible.
never think of.
Yeah, and also yeah, it shows off Oda's creativity. Like if I'm thinking of fruits that give people powers, a fruit that makes people being able to spawn any number of hands anywhere at any time, it's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty overpowered. Like
Yeah.
she like there's like the one moment where she basically like snaps people's like backs like by just growing pairs of hands like
Yeah,
behind them. Crazy.
yeah,
Crazy. Just and that would be a horrible way to die.
yeah.
Because
I
you
was
just wouldn't
curious,
even see it.
did Mr. Four have a fruit, or was he just super strong and he had the gun that had the fruit?
I don't think that they ever said that he had a fruit. Yeah.
Okay, because I liked his. It was like taking off the training weights type of situation where he puts the bat on the ground that he's holding, and the bat hits the fence, and the fence or the stone wall, and the stone wall cracks, and then the next frame is completely shattered, and everyone's like, "Holy shit! How strong is that guy?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. That was a
Um. Let's see other stuff they set up for the future. I think the biggest thing is definitely Nico Robin. Did they say where they're
yeah,
going in the future? Where they're like headed just down the Grand Line? Is that all they said?
no, yeah. They're just going to the next island
Yeah.
because
I
this is
like
basically
that.
like
It's like
the
very
end of everything that's been set up until this point since they got on the Grand Line.
definitely yeah.
So because like from the very beginning, like I mean, this is basically the end to like a 100+ chapter arc if you consider like when they're first introduced to Baroque works.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
for sure. Because yeah, they first find the two. They find Vivi and uh, I can't remember which guy. It was one of the lower guys, but they find them on
yeah,
the whale, which is very early, like right when they get on the Grand Line. And now
exactly. Yeah,
117 chapters later, they're done with Baroque works and moving on to whatever island is next. And Vivi gets her send off, which is pretty great.
Hmm.
uh-huh. Yep, just the adventure continues at this
Yeah,
point.
very open ended. It's pretty great that they can just do that and like not
Yeah,
feel
it's like
compelled to give us any more that would be unnecessary almost.
mhm. Plus it makes the like the end of the arc where we get like our customary like big feast moment and just like kind of vibing with like everyone in Alabasta just makes it feel so much more like earned, you know? It's like, oh, we've tied up all of the loose ends that have been around since like 100 chapters ago. Um, and now we are just relishing in our success, which
Yeah,
is a like I love the like the feasts that Oda
Yeah.
draws for the Straw Hats like after the arcs. Like those are like so good and like so satisfying. And also we get a lot of really good character interaction out of all of those.
yeah. The
Um,
oh, go ahead.
there's actually a really cool song sequence that they had in the anime that I would recommend you watch, where like the voice actors actually sing it.
Oh, really? For during the
Yeah,
feast?
yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely check that out.
And it's just like a little wrap up song for Alabasta.
Yeah, that feast because like it kind of seems like they set that up early because they have Luffy saying like I'm gonna eat myself to death or like I'm gonna eat till I explode when I get there or something like
Yeah.
that. And he ends up like there's like they have like this mini conflict between him and the Igarim's wife, who looks exactly like Igarim except in a wig or in a dress or whatever. Not even a wig, yeah. And then she's like, "Don't you think you can defeat me? I will set up whatever feast you need." And like they have the great panel with like everybody eating, and I think it was like Usopp was like, "You're eating from my plate, Luffy," and everyone's got their own
Yeah.
thing going. Pretty great.
Yeah, those are really good. I like
Yeah.
I love the amount of like detail that is always put into the eating panels.
Yeah.
Really good stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean, like we said, this is basically the end of that this like 100+ chapter kind of like saga. Um, and yeah, we're just moving on to new adventures from here on out.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd say just general thoughts on the whole arc. I 100% say it's my favorite arc so far. I definitely think it benefited from being a longer arc than some of the previous arcs, but having like so much stuff that's been set up and just like pay off at like character development and stuff like that. Um, I think having all that pay off during this arc and just having like a pretty well organized story that's interesting and has the intrigue, like the political intrigue aspect to it that they kind of had in some of the other arcs, but also just like it's not over the top and it's not like something overly complex or anything, but it's satisfying. I think is probably my biggest thing. It's a very satisfying arc and very satisfying conclusion to those setups.
Was
yeah,
it
I
worth
agree.
the 70 chapters?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
These are, I mean, the chapters themselves are like the first manga I read was Attack on Titan, and the chapters in those are, what would you say, Kyle? Like how much
Probably
longer
like
would you say?
30 or 40 pages each, as
Yeah,
opposed to these where they're like 10. So
Hmm.
yeah. So 70 chapters is it doesn't it's not too bad, and having all like the early like we were kind of teasing before the show, like some people would be like, "Oh, this chapter is just people talking. Where are my explosions? I don't need this." But like those talking chapters are so important to make the later chapters feel good and like have an
The build
impact.
up.
Yeah, the character development.
Yep.
And I think this arc was something it excelled at that.
yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, this is like I would say this is like the moment where like One Piece becomes like this is like the first like really great arc in One Piece. Like I mean, like I would say like well, I don't know. I mean, I guess Arlong is like great, but this is like the first like epic. Like this arc like really feels like, because there's been so many things that have been like foreshadowed from hundreds of chapters ago, and like the scope is so large, but it still has like that like very like human and relatable like emotional core to it. This is like where One Piece becomes like it becomes an epic story as opposed to just like a fun like battle manga with gags, and it still is that, like, it still is fun on a moment to moment level. It still is really funny, but it is also like grand in scope. And yeah, I really love this arc. Definitely the best one so far.
Yeah. And I think something we mentioned earlier that feeds into that is like this is the first time we've seen Luffy really struggle with somebody and like have to
Hmm.
grow and stuff. So I think that's a great point, like a great point to notice in the series. Like when Luffy first starts having trouble, it's on the Grand Line, but it's not like right off the Grand Line. It's a good way, a decent like 50 or 100 chapters up it, and that's definitely something to notice.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, if you guys have anything else to say, willing to wrap it up?
Yeah, I mean, I think pretty much got my thoughts in on the arc. Will,
Yeah.
do you have any? I mean, there's not really many open plot threads at this point, but like, any thoughts on where the story might go from here, just since you haven't read it before?
I mean, I think the biggest elephant in the room is just Nico Robin and what they're going to do with her. Um, that's, I mean, you've got them, the new Marine captain, the pink-haired lady, talks in the third person. That's definitely something to look out for. I can't remember her name, Hina or something.
Yeah,
Hina.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, Other than that, I don't even know what other open plot points there are. They started doing the the little before story is the octopus guy from the Arlong arc.
Right,
So
yeah.
if it follows the trend of the other ones, I'm expecting him to show up eventually. Also, we haven't seen Kobe and Helmeppo show up again, and I'm
It's
expecting
true.
them.
Yep.
But yeah, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to reading more.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, I mean, next week we'll probably just do the next arc. It's the next one's kind of a short one, but I don't want to combine it with the next one just because the next one is, I think, the longest, is even longer than Alabasta.
Okay.
So we should probably just do like the short one, and then just do the long one after that.
All right. We
So
will do that next time. Uh, Thanks for listening, and see you next time.
bye.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.